People come back to me year after year, sailors and drummers. I'll remember. Good night." She looked after him until he was out the front door and down the cement steps to the sidewalk. He walked to the corner and looked at the clock in a jeweler's window, 7:30. He set out walking rapidly eastward through a district of department stores and specialty shops, and then through the wholesale produce district, quiet now in the evening. The narrow streets deserted, the depot entrances closed with wooden bars and wire netting. He came at last to an old street of 3-story brick buildings. Pawn shops and second-hand tool dealers occupied the ground floors, while failing dentists and lawyers had offices in the upper 2 flights. Jim looked at each doorway until he found the number he wanted. He went in a dark entrance and climbed the narrow stairs, rubber-treaded, the edges guarded with strips of brass. A little nightlight burned at the head of the steps, but only one door in the long hall showed a light through its frosted glass. Jim walked to it, looked at the 16 on the glass, and knocked. A sharp voice called, "Come in." Jim opened the door and stepped into a small, bare office containing a desk, a metal filing cabinet, an army cot, and 2 straight chairs. On the desk sat an electric cooking plate, on which a little tin coffee pot bubbled and steamed. A man looked solemnly over the desk at Jim. He glanced at a card in front of him. "Jim Nolan?" he asked. "Yes." Jim looked closely at him. A small man, neatly dressed in a dark suit. His thick hair was combed straight down on each side from the top in a vain attempt to cover a white scar 1/2 inch wide that lay horizontally over the right ear. The eyes were sharp and black. Quick, nervous eyes that moved constantly about, from Jim to the card and up to a wall calendar and to an alarm clock and back to Jim. The nose was large, thick at the bridge and narrow at the point. The mouth might at one time have been full and soft, but habitual muscular tension had drawn it close and made a deep line on each lip. Although the man couldn't have been over 40, his face bore heavy parenthetical lines of resistance to attack. His hands were as nervous as his eyes, large hands, almost too big for his body, long fingers with spatulate ends and flat, thick nails. The hands moved about on the desk like the exploring hands of a blind man, feeling the edges of paper, following the corner of the desk, touching in turn each button on his vest. The right hand went to the electric plate and pulled out the plug. Jim closed the door quietly and stepped to the desk. "I was told to come here," he said. Suddenly, the man stood up and pushed his right hand across. "I'm Harry Nilsson. I have your application here." Jim shook hands. "Sit down, Jim." The nervous voice was soft, but made soft by an effort. Jim pulled the extra chair close and sat down by the desk. Harry opened a desk drawer, took out an open can of milk, the holes plugged with matches, a cup of sugar, and 2 thick mugs. "Will you have a cup of coffee?" "Sure," said Jim. Nilsson poured the black coffee into the mugs. He said, "Now here's the way we work on applications, Jim. Your card went to the membership committee. I have to talk to you and make a report. The committee passes on the report and then the membership votes on you. So you see, if I question you pretty deep, I just have to." He poured milk into his coffee, and then he looked up and his eyes smiled for a second. "Sure, I know," said Jim. "I've heard you're more select than the Union League Club. By God, we have to be." He shoved the sugar bowl at Jim, then suddenly, "Why do you want to join the party?" Jim stirred his coffee. His face wrinkled up in concentration. He looked down into his lap. "Well, I could give you a lot of little reasons. Mainly it's this. My whole family has been ruined by this system. My old man, my father, was slugged so much in labor trouble that he went punch drunk. He got an idea that he'd like to dynamite a slaughterhouse where he used to work. Well, he caught a charge of buckshot in the chest from a riot gun." Harry interrupted. "Was your father Roy Nolan?" "Yeah. Killed 3 years ago." "Jesus," Harry said. "He had a reputation for being the toughest mug in the country. I've heard he could lick 5 cops with his bare hands." Jim grinned. "I guess he could, but every time he went out, he met 6. He always got the hell beat out of him."